Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my top 5 defenses to stream for week number 2 of the 2022 fantasy football season. Inside of today's video, I'll be going in depth into 5 different defenses that I really do believe have great matchups this week and can help you take down your week number 2 opponent. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my top 5 defenses to stream for week number 2. We begin with my number 1 defense to be streaming on the week, the Cincinnati Bengals at the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's World. Currently, the Bengals defense is 11% owned on NFL.com, but if you play on Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper, any of those other fantasy football platforms, then the ownership percentage is going to be slightly different for all of these defenses. Last week, the Bengals defense up against the Steelers got 1 sack and 11 points allowed. Now, if you were talking about a matchup that you wanted to stay away from just a week ago, you would have thought that there is no way in hell you want to stream the Cincinnati Bengals defense up against the Dallas Cowboys. But last night on Sunday Night Football, Dak Prescott got hurt, and it is going to be a 6 to 8 week recovery for Dak Prescott. This means that right now, Cooper Rush is the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, do I believe that Cooper Rush is some absolute fucking garbage can who can't score any points against the Bengals defense? No, but it is way more likely that Cooper Rush makes multiple mistakes in this game when compared to Dak Prescott. So going up against the Bengals defense that isn't the best defense ever, this matchup is just very, very juicy. Week 1, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers went up against the Dallas Cowboys last night. The defense got 4 sacks, 1 interception, and just allowed 3 points in that game. I truly believe this is a smash spot for the Bengals defense, so I would definitely look to pick them up as my number 1 defense to stream on the week. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns going up against the New York Jumbo Jets. The Browns defense is currently being owned in 15.4% of leagues. The Cleveland Browns were one of the defenses I was banging the drum for over the last couple of weeks prior to the NFL season because I really liked the first 4 games for the Cleveland Browns defense. I thought they were viable in all of those matchups. In week number 1, in that revenge game for Baker Mayfield in Carolina, the Cleveland Browns defense had 4 sacks, 1 INT, and 24 points allowed. In week number 1, the Ravens went up against the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife. The Ravens defense got 3 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 9 points allowed. This matchup is also incredibly easy for the Cleveland Browns defense. Joe Flacco stands virtually 0 fucking chance up against Myles Garrett and this defensive front. The Browns defense got 4 sacks last week. It wouldn't surprise me if they got 5 or 6 in this game up against the Jets offensive line. I really do expect this to be an incredibly easy matchup for the Cleveland Browns defensively. Joe Flacco, again, just did not look good at all. He only threw 1 interception in that game. And to be honest with you, I feel as though he got a little bit lucky because the Jets were never in that game. At no point could you have even thought that the Jets were going to put up even a bit of a fight. The Jets offense is an absolute fucking embarrassment to the NFL, and Joe Flacco is also embarrassing to have as your starting quarterback. So I expect the Browns defense to roll up the Jets and smoke them like a blunt. I love the Browns defense this week. Next up, we move to the defenses where things start to get a little bit more dicey, in my opinion. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the New England Patriots at home in Pittsburgh. 35.5% ownership right now on the Steelers defense. In week number 1, up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati, they made Joe Burrow look like fucking Stevie Wonder in the pocket. In that game, the Steelers defense got 7 sacks. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 fucking interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, and they allowed 20 points in that game, and they probably should have lost that game because of how bad Kiss and Titties Mitchell Trubisky looked in that game. The offense for the Steelers was atrocious. but they still were able to win. Now, this Steelers defense is going to look different from week 1 to week number 2 because it appears that TJ Watt has torn his pec, which would take him out for the entire season, which is a humongous blow for the Steelers defense. TJ Watt was everywhere on defense up against the Bengals. He was squashing Joe Burrow, and he was the biggest reason as to why the Steelers won that game. It wasn't because Mitch Trubisky played well. It wasn't because the offense played well. It's because TJ Watt put the whole fucking team on his back. And Watt is basically not going to play up against the Patriots. There's still like a 0.1% chance that maybe everything that I read just ends up being untrue. Everything people think is untrue. And then Watt plays next week, but doesn't really seem possible at all. The Dolphins played the Patriots last week in Miami. They had 2 sacks, 1 INT, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 touchdown, and 7 points allowed. The Dolphins defense absolutely suffocated any ounce of offense that the New England Patriots may have had ready in that game. Mac Jones was terrified all game long. He was getting hit. He threw that terrible interception on the first drive. He just should not have thrown the ball there. The fumble recovery for a touchdown. Things weren't great for Mac Jones in that game. Now, do I think the Patriots are going to come out super flat up against the Steelers in week number 2? No. But I do think that maybe this Patriots offense is truly in trouble. Maybe the fact that Matt Patricia is calling the plays for the Patriots is not a good idea, and that is why Mystic Mac Jones and this offense looks awful. That's kind of my opinion on it. Now, if you're in a deeper league, we're not going to talk about the Patriots defense in today's video. The Patriots defense also somewhat interests me because of how bad Mitchell Trubisky looked. But before we get on into the final defenses I want to be streaming in today's video, we have 2 more left. I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, Underdog Fantasy is best known for the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. You heard everyone talking about it all offseason long. $10 million prize pool, $2 million to first place. Now, obviously, you can't do that anymore because the season has started, but Underdog also has other offerings, like the over-under player prop pick'em on every single game in the NFL. For example, tonight, I'll give you guys a couple of picks. Russell Wilson, over or under 255.5 passing yards. We got Javonte Williams, over or under 13.5 rushing attempts. Javonte Williams, over or under 77.5 rushing plus receiving yards. Melvin Gordon, over or under 1.5 receptions, and many, many more offerings on there for the pick'em. They also have weekly drafts. So the Monday Night Melee, $5 to enter, $10,000 to first place. In these 1-game contests, these single-game contests, all you got to do is draft 4 players from the game, and the highest scorer at the end of the slate will end up taking home the big prize, $10,000 to first place, $50,000 total prize pool, and they also have it for all the games on Sunday, the main slate on Sunday as well. So make sure if you guys do want to go ahead and check that out, use promo code Stokastic, Stokastic, for a $100 first match deposit bonus. So you deposit $100, they will give you an additional $100. Please make sure that you guys do go ahead and check out Underdog Fantasy. I like Underdog Fantasy a ton, and I play on there all the time. So next defense to discuss back on into today's video, we got the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears. 68.1% ownership on the Packers. The other teams, like I mentioned, the Bengals were 11%, Browns 15.4%, Steelers 35.5%. The Packers are owned in a lot of leagues, but there is still 30+% of leagues on NFL that they're available in. So there might be some leagues where you guys are watching today's video that they are actually available. Now, last week, the Packers got butt fucked by the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins, really Justin Jefferson, just bent them over a table and fucked them without the use of any lube or even the common courtesy to spit, okay? Things were very, very bad. The Packers defense got 1 sack and allowed 23 points. That was a demolishment of the Packers defense. The Vikings, literally, it was a cakewalk. It was so easy, and kind of like what happened last year, if you remember. The Packers up against the Saints. The Saints demolished the Packers, and then the next week, the Packers looked normal again. On Sunday, the 49ers played up against the Bears in Chicago, getting just 2 sacks, 1 interception, and 19 points allowed. The 49ers were actually one of my favorite defenses to stream last week, but things didn't end up working out so well. There was a fucking monsoon occurring in the game. The numbers on the field looked wobbled like a goddamn Van Gogh painting. Things were awful. It looked bad. So the 49ers up against Chicago, like the fact that the Bears were able to score, that was a very, very, very incredibly wonky game. So are there even many takeaways you can get from that game? In my opinion, no. It was like that game last year where the Bills played the Patriots. There's a 1,000,000-mile-an-hour winds. They're running the ball. Nothing's happening. That's kind of just how I view this game. Now, obviously, it's a big win for the Bears to win that game, and it is impressive to win in those conditions. But you do things wildly different than you would be doing up against the Packers in Lambeau when there is not going to be a torrential fucking downpour. The Packers defense looked awful last week up against the Vikings, but I think this week, the Packers bounced back in a big way, both offensively and defensively up against the Bears. I really just don't think Justin Fields has the juice to do enough here up against the Packers in his year number 2 campaign, especially in week number 2. I know they're riding high off of that win, but here, I really think the Packers defense has their way with the Bears offense, so I like the Packers D a ton this week. Again, 68.1% owned on NFL Fantasy. Final defense to discuss here, the New York Football Giants up against the Panthers, 0.6% owned. Now, the Giants woke up last week. The Giants torched my Tennessee Titans defense, and I didn't love the Tennessee Titans defense. I just love the matchup because it's week 1 of Brian Daboll being a head coach. Maybe they're going to struggle. Daniel Jones is known to turn the ball over, which he did in that game, but the Giants ultimately won, so a huge round of applause for the Giants. Week 1 at Tennessee, the Giants defense, 1 sack, 1 fumble recovery, and 20 points allowed. Now, I'm a big Baker Mayfield guy, but Baker Mayfield did not look good. Against the Browns, he did not look good at all. Browns at Panthers, Browns defense, 4 sacks, 1 interception, 24 points allowed. Now, is the Browns defense significantly better than the Giants defense? Yes. But if the Giants showed the same amount of heart defensively and offensively as they did last week in that game up against the Titans, then I think the Carolina Panthers offense might struggle. It seemed like the team, Matt Rule, didn't know what the fuck to do because he should have just been giving the ball to Christian McCaffrey repeatedly. Baker was making these mistakes. All you have to do is have Christian McCaffrey either get handed the ball or have McCaffrey run 3 yards to the right or the left, and Baker just throws it to him. There's no way to fucking throw an incompletion there because the guy's 2 feet away, and you just keep throwing him the ball. But instead, they're trying to do all these different things. Robbie Anderson sure makes that great play, blah, 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 but the game plan should be just give Christian McCaffrey the ball. Maybe the team has learned. Maybe they don't want Christian McCaffrey to get so much work that he ends up passing away by the time they hit week number 5. Maybe that's what they're doing. But if I'm being honest with you, if the Panthers want to win, they need to give the rock to Christian McCaffrey more, in my opinion. And I assume that is the opinion of many people. In the comment section, if you guys were watching that game, what did you think? Because I thought that McCaffrey was not getting the ball enough. If the Panthers switch their game plan, they give him the ball more, then the Giants defense might be a certified flop. This week, there aren't that many great defensive matchups for fantasy football, and that's why the Giants crack the top 5. Again, far from ideal. I definitely like the top 4 defenses significantly more than the Giants, but maybe even with the defense being banged up, this is just a new Giants team, and even with the fact that the defensive players aren't the best, the coach is going to get the most out of them. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you hit that like button down below, as well as hitting that subscribe button. It would help me out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious, FNTSY. So thank you guys all so much for watching. I do love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.